In news about corn, Utah's law requiring verification for sites that talk about corn remains in effect after a judge tossed a lawsuit. So Utah passed a law that said that corn should not be given to minors. Corn is bad, and we need to verify a person's age before they're allowed to buy or view corn. So a corny law. Let's learn a little bit more about this Utah law that is now apparently going into effect. Let's learn a little bit more about this. A law that required websites that deal in corn to verify the age of users will remain in effect after a federal judge dismissed a lawsuit from the industry group that had challenged the constitutionality. The dismissal poses a setback for digital privacy advocates and the Free Speech Coalition, which had sued on behalf of the corn entertainers, corn authors, corn educators, and casual corn viewers all over Utah and Louisiana, designed to limit access to corn. Utah Judge Tad Stewart did not address the group's arguments. The law unfairly discriminates against certain kinds of speech, violates the First Amendment rights of corn providers, and intrudes on the privacies of individuals who want to view corn-related content. So this all deals with how we're dealing with speech as it relates to corn, and we want to make sure that the people who are dealing with corn are only adults, because corn-related speech has, of course, long been regulated by our government. Stores that specialize in corn, or adult clubs that have to deal with corn, or corn filming, or corn behavior, has long been regulated on the basis of age and location. So we want to make sure that we continue to do that. Dismissing the lawsuit on Tuesday, he instead said they couldn't sue Utah officials because of how the law calls for the age verification to be enforced. The law doesn't direct the state to pursue or prosecute the websites, and instead gives Utah residents the power to sue them and collect damages if they don't take precautions. So Utah adopted a measure similar to how Texas dealt with the issue of unwanted human beings in early stages of growth. And Texas did this as well, where it's like, well, there's no prosecutorial authority, but we're going to give private individuals the power to sue and collect damages and turn them into attorneys general, private attorneys general. And so Utah did a similar measure, and for similar reasons, the court said, okay, you can't block this law because there's no criminal enforcement power. So Texas's solution to this problem being adopted by Utah, apparently to some success. The judge writes they cannot just perform a pre-enforcement injunction, citing the law that upheld Texas's law. So Texas did something very, very similar to this by saying, okay, we're going to not make it criminal. You can't go after the people that are doing it, but you can sue the people relating to it. So yeah, it was a very similar issue. The law in Utah is the latest effort of anti-corn lobby, which comes as a surprise because corn, part of the facet of America, I am sure. But Utah representatives say that the law is meant to combat public and mental health effects they say come from corn and corn watching. Watching the corn grow is not good for the children. In passing the age verification requirements, Utah legislature argued that because corn had become ubiquitous and easily accessible, it poses a threat to children that are developmentally formative when they begin learning about corn-related things. The law doesn't specify how the corn websites should verify users' ages. Some, including Corn which is a hub for all things corn, have blocked pages in Utah, while others have experimented with third-party age verification services, including a facial recognition program which uses webcams aimed at the users to identify facial features and estimates of age, which I'm sure comes as fun news for everyone knowing that they're being watched as they watch. Who will watch the watchers? Apparently coming to a whole new world near you. Opponents have argued that the age verification law for the corn websites not only infringes on free speech, but also threatens privacy because it's impossible to ensure websites don't retain the identification data. On Tuesday, the Free Speech Coalition, which is challenging a similar law, vowed to appeal. States are attempting to do an end run around the First Amendment by outsourcing censorship to citizens, the group's executive director said, which is also what Texas tried to do to some degree, apparently successfully. And look, it's being used for other reasons. I told you this law would perforate, right? When Texas came up with this idea, I'm like, this will be used for all kinds of purposes. Wait till it's used, to suppress Second Amendment speech or something like that. But yeah, it's a new mechanism, but a deeply flawed one. Governments are attempting to chill speech, no matter the method, are prohibiting the Constitution and decades of legal precedent, which in this particular context is not particularly clear that that's true, right? This is not just any speech. This is speech dealing with corn. And as I noted, corn related speech and corn related activity has often been regulated by states in time, place, and manner. So, although it requires verification at the door, as it were, that isn't necessarily a legal chill on this kind of speech, given the historical analogs. State Senator Todd Wheeler said the age verification law said he was unsurprised by the lawsuit being dismissed. He said Utah, either its executive branch or legislature, would likely expand the digital identification program in the future to make it easier for websites to comply with age verification requirements, both for the corn websites and for social media platforms that might have corn related elements. The state had passed the first in nation law in March to similarly require age verification for anyone who wants to use social media in Utah, because again, when it comes to access for these things, we want to make sure that they're of legal age to access social media. Utah Attorney General Sean Rise, one of the officials named in the lawsuit, applauded the dismissal and called the age verification requirement reasonable safeguards for our children. The innocence of our children are paramount and worth protecting ardently, he said in a statement. Thus, that brings us to the end of this story dealing with corn, which the state of Utah and state of Louisiana have said is a scourge on their respective states and are requiring people to sign up and prove they're of age before they can access corn. I mean, we certainly understand that certain products are age restricted, and if you go into a store and you want to buy certain products, you might have to show ID. And the fact that this is online rather than in a physical store doesn't necessarily change that analysis. If you want to go to the corn store or the corn theater or the corn establishment or the corn club, you have to show ID at the door. So why not in the online community as well? And Utah adopted Texas's method of making this private enforcement to get around some of the issues, which is also kind of interesting. But the law is allowed to go into effect for the moment because of this, and that for the moment brings us to the end of discussion of this corny case.